In order to get a health care bill passed, Democrats in Congress are going to have to go it alone. His party may be in the minority, but House Republican leader John Boehner is heading a solid wall of opposition. I spoke with him Friday at the Capitol. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Glad to be with you.
I heard something the other day from the president, and knowing I was going to come here and interview you, we pulled it because I wanted to get your reaction to what's over here.
I know a lot of people view this as a partisan issue, but both parties have found areas where we agree. What we've ended up with is a proposal that's somewhere in the middle, one that incorporates the best from Democrats and Republicans, best ideas.
Somewhere in the middle. He may have taken a couple of Republican ideas and then put them into his 2,733-page bill, but this bill is nowhere close to the middle.
They did take the idea of undercover agents to check into Medicare fraud. There's no public option, which Republicans and many Democrats hated. There are pilot programs for medical malpractice reform. There is insurance industry reform, which you all are for, having to do with caps on lifetime benefits and that kind of thing. And there's tax credits for small businesses. Why isn't that enough?
We could come to an agreement on probably 8 or 10 common sense steps that you outlined to make our health care system better. But we can't come to an agreement on 8 or 10 things and throw them into a 2,700-page bill and ask my colleagues to vote for $500 billion worth of Medicare cuts. They aren't going back into saving Medicare. They're going to come out of Medicare in order to pay for this new entitlement program. $500 billion in higher taxes at a time when we're asking Americans to reinvest in the economy. But no, the government wants to create this new entitlement program.
But also, looking at the scoring from CBO of the House and the Senate, it shows it brings the deficit down. That if you take this comprehensive look, which a lot of people argue on the Democratic side, you have to have a comprehensive look because everything's kind of connected to everything else. So if you're looking at two bills, and they'll come out somewhere with parts of all of them, that are going to bring down the deficit, isn't that something you support?
Well, I'm highly skeptical of the so-called CBO numbers that bring down the deficit. And I say that because
but aren't they the gold standard?
There's a number of steps in this bill where they're double counting the savings. I just think that's inappropriate. Listen, the American people want us to do something about the cost of health insurance. This bill will raise the cost of health insurance. And even according to CBO and all the outside estimates, is that if you already have health insurance, you're going to pay more under their proposal.
I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but we do know that there have also been studies showing that with government subsidies, people will be able to buy more insurance, and that in that sense, it may go up. But insurance policy versus the same insurance policy, it'll go down. So that's another study, and I don't want to...
But Candy, you know, you talked about their bill supposedly bringing down the deficit. Let's remember there are 10 years worth of tax increases and Medicare cuts and only 6 years of additional benefits.
You don't think there's enough waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare to pay for that? When you're looking at the cuts in Medicare, you don't think there's that much waste, fraud, and abuse?
If there's money to be saved in Medicare, and I believe there is, it ought to be returned to the Medicare program to extend the life of the program, not be used to start a new entitlement program.
They look as though they certainly have the numbers to pass this, the Democrats.
Really?
What is your...
Listen, they've got 40 more Democrats in the House than they have Republicans. They've got, 59, or they've got 19 more Democrats in the Senate, or 18, than they have Republicans. And they can pass this all on their own. The only bipartisanship that's involved in this town right now with regard to health care is there's bipartisan opposition to what they're attempting to do. Do you think, because you're a pretty good vote counter, does she have 216, the Speaker? If she had 216 votes, this bill would be long gone. And remember, they tried to do this in June and July last year. If they had the votes then, it'd be law. They tried to pass it in September, October, November, December, January, February. Guess what? They don't have the votes. The American people don't want to take this step toward government-run health insurance. It's a dangerous step. because we do have the best health care system in the world.
I want to point out that the Democrats clearly have argued and will argue that it's not a government-run program, that if you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance.
Well, that's not true, though. It's one of those things that keeps being said, but it's not true, and here's why. First, with the employer mandate, some employers are going to look at the penalty and say, you know, I spend a lot more than that providing health care to my employees, and so I'm going to drop it.
But they'll have a menu of choices.
Forcing you then to go to the health exchange.
Sure.
And so you can't keep it.
But they will have a menu of choices the way this is set out. The 3 or 4 in this exchange where people can look at and pick something from that. Would you agree with that?
Government-run exchange, the expectation is you'll have 3 or 4 plans as designed by the federal government.
What's the Republican role now on the House side? What is there left for you all to do?
I'm doing everything I can to prevent this bill from becoming law, plain and simple. We've offered our ideas. We've asked the president to sit down and work with us. They've refused all the way through the process. And
you had the summit.
They had the summit. We offered our ideas.
And he incorporated some, did he not?
And took a couple of Republican breadcrumbs and put them on top of their 2,700-page bill. That's not good enough. And so what I'm doing is working with my colleagues to keep the American people engaged in this fight. I don't have enough votes on my side of the aisle to stop the bill. But I, along with the majority of the American people who are opposed to this, can stop this bill. And we're going to do everything we can to make it difficult for them, if not impossible, to pass a bill.
When we come back, House Republican leader Boehner on how he sees politics playing out in this year's midterm and the scandal that forced out Congressman Eric Massa.
So you did grope someone.